Hi, my name is Craig Thompson Wood, your host on Teaching with Board Games, and today I'm taking a look at 1754 Conquest, the French and Indian War by Academy Games. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about how I use it in my grade 7 classroom to teach history, as well as the modifications I make to the game to make it more accessible for the classroom use, and how I do follow-up activities with it afterwards. So sit tight, stay tuned, and let's get right into 1754 Conquest, the French and Indian War. So the first thing I'm going to do is just lay out the board on a table. I have it here. This is a standing table I have in my classroom, and a stool sample there. Ba-dum-bum. And just put out all the dice, the cubes, tokens that I'm going to need for putting on the board, which I'll explain in a second. But notice I'm not putting out the cards. I don't use the cards because it's just an extra layer of complication and things to students who, let's face it, probably don't have a lot of board game experience. So I try to simplify it as much as possible. So that's one of the first changes I'm going to make to modify this game for classroom use. So now I'm going to set up the board. When setting up the board, you're looking for the spaces that indicate how many troops are being put into each space. So here there's going to be one red cube and two white, one red, one white. And any of the forts, this symbol here indicates a fort, but notice it's shaded in and it has a more reddish background. That's because this is an English fort and this is a French fort. The French is the purple. So these are French forts, but then you'll find spaces like here at Fort William Henry. There's no circle around us. There's no fort here during the beginning of the game, and so for my purposes, as here with Fort St. Frederick, there will not be one during the game. This is for the full experience, but we're only playing a very basic, even simplified version, so those will not be in place. So there's forts here, here, and here, one here, here, and here. Those will be the forts that will be in use. Other than that, you're looking for the space that indicate the troops. Now, anywhere that there's the green space and there is troops there, so where there's like these white English troops here, I am going to put this token here to show that this is an English controlled territory. And whereas here there's purple and yellow, that means it's French. This is a French controlled territory. So this is already assumed to be French because it is purple. This is already considered to be English because it is red, but anything that is green that has those troops in it will be the territory as indicated by the token in control. These tokens here are for where troops are mustered, the local troops. So the French yellows or the British white, they're indicated here on the board by this thing here. So Saint Jean, this symbol here is a town, and with the circle around it means this is where one of the French things goes. And it shouldn't be on the side with 3, it should be on the side with 2, indicating that 2 troops will be put there, and it just really wants to jump over to the other side. So 2. Now, there's a town up here in Montreal. There's nothing around it, so for purpose of the game, properly played does not have it, but I do put one in Montreal. There's also one here at Oneida Carey for the British, and I put one down here in Philadelphia. So they have 2 sections. These are 2 areas where they can bring in more troops. They have to use those locations, which I will explain more as we get more. That being done, that is the game board set up. I need to put this here on space 1 to indicate this is the first turn, and the game is now set up. Until I put the cubes on. There we go. Now that all the cubes are on the board, now the game is ready to play. So this is what the game should look like at the start of the setup. And then what we'll do is with my class, I divide them into teams of 4, not teams, but 2 teams of 2, which face off each other. So one group of 4, let's just say, and then 2 would be the French and 2 would be the English. But in the French, these are the yellow is for your French Canadians, your French regulars. So one person will control the regulars, one will control the Canadians, and for the British, one will control the colonials, and one will control the regulars. And the green represents the First Nations troops, and they would just be shared with the people who they were supporting. The First Nations working in conjunction with the French or the English. In the beginning of the game, they only split up the French, but as the game plays, there's opportunity for the English to have in the game, you have this black bag here, and in the black bag there is dice, 5 dice of different colors, and you're going to simply pull one of the 5 dice. So I pulled out a yellow. Now notice that this one has nothing on it, and that's intentional. So this goes into the first space here on the board. So this indicates then that the French Canadian player is going to take their turn first. So with the French Canadians getting their first turn, the first thing they're going to do on their turn is they're going to add reinforcements. So the reinforcements for the French Canadians, as I said, they go into these things here. So they can either add 2 cubes into Montreal, or they can add 2 into Saint Jean. And let's just say that they're going to add these troops into Saint Jean here. So now we have all those troops in Saint Jean. Oh, that's not a English territory, it is French. Now, in the game, when you're playing the game properly, the full proper game, you are using the cards to denote what it is that you're doing in your turn. So the cards have different abilities and different things, and depending on the type of game that you're playing. So they have here, so they have, so there's 1 and 2, and then these are all different color, because you can play a game which is a quick game with just 2 rounds. This would be the full game. So we are only playing the 2 rounds. We want the quick game, but we also want to make it, like I say, more simplified. So in the quick game, when you're only playing 2 rounds, there is certain cards that you're taking out. So there's a lot of cards here. Only some of these you would be using in the quick game. But so I just want to point out these ones. So these are some of the cards you would be using. So you can use a card for moving 3 troops 2 spaces, or moving 2 troops 3 spaces. So again, we are not using cards, but what I tell the students in the first round, everybody is going to be able to move 3 troops 2 spaces. And that way in the last turn, they're moving 2 troops 3 spaces. It allows them to make bigger movements and things. So now when you're moving, when I say moving troops, it's not like these 2 cubes count as 2 troops. Troops would be everybody moving together 2 spaces like so, if they wish. I mean, they can leave anybody behind that they want, but they can't sort of leave some here and go here and then leaving that one behind. When they move together. So if these 3 choose to move together, they can move together. And notice, as I did here, as long as I'm moving Canadiens, I can move something else with them. So I can move this Canadien with these 2 First Nations cubes if I want, move them 2 spaces. But if I'm moving, I have to make sure that I'm moving the Canadiens. It is their turn. They have to move. They have to be the ones making the move. They can't make other things move without them coming along for the ride. Okay, so let's just say then I do choose to, let's say, I'm going to come down here from Montreal. I'm going to go 1, 2. I'm going to reinforce Fort St. Frederick, and then maybe I'll get aggressive and I'll come across here to this spot and attack these troops. So now what I'm putting up on the screen here now, this is an image of the sheet that the students are using while playing the game. In this sheet, they are keeping note of any battles that they are fighting. And that way they can, so they record which French troops are being used, which English troops are being used, were First Nations troops on either side, and where was the battle being fought and who won the fight. The purpose of this then is that after the match, after the game is played, they are going to research those particular battles and see, did it actually occur? Was there actually a battle that happened there in the history of Canada? And if so, who fought and who won? And that way they can compare and see whether this was actually something that happened. So now looking at this fight here then. So as we noted, we have, I seem to have misplaced my fort token. We have a fort here. So there's a fort, but there's 2 white French English colonials. Then we have these 3 French Canadiens and 1 French regular. So we start off with the defenders. So the defenders are fighting first. So because there are 2 white cubes, I'm going to use 2 white dice. If I had 3 white cubes, I would use all 3 white dice. Now there is only 3 white dice, so even if I had 4 or 5 or 6, I would still roll the maximum number. There is 3 white and 3 yellow for the French and English troops, which are from Canada. Then there is 2 red and purple, which are the troops which are being brought in from Europe. And then there is 2 First Nations dice. On these cubes, you have 2 with the bullseye, 2 sides with bullseyes, that means hit, 2 sides with blank, that means miss, and 2 sides with the person running, which means fleeing. And fleeing units will go into here. Now, when a battle is taking place at a fort, you're also rolling this fort dice. And if a fort symbol comes up, and it is on 50% of the sides, 3 out of 6, then that means that 1 hit from the other side is going to be blocked automatically. So I'm going to roll these dice. And I got a nice little assortment here. So I have the fort symbol has come up, so this is going to protect them. One of these troops lost their nerve and has fled, so they come over there. 1 has killed a troop, and then the fort will protect. So this dice has been resolved. These 2 here, it is now up to the French player to decide which one they want to lose. The yellow are the less elite and less likely to hit, so therefore they're going to be removed. So now we're going to roll. We have 2 yellow and 1 purple. And the purple, as you see, they've got 3 hit symbols and 3 blank symbols. So with the blank symbols, so you notice they don't have any running. The French regulars and the English regulars will never run. I'm just going to leave this fort symbol here to remind myself that and there's only 1 regular and 2, so I'm to have the matching dice. This is just to remind me that the first hit is going to be ignored. So that hit is ignored, and these 2 French regulars have lost their nerve and have run away. Now, this English troop here doesn't have a choice. So this French troop doesn't have a choice. They have to stay. If they had rolled a blank, then they could have elected to have withdrawn back to a friendly area or to where they'd come from. So they could have then come back, but because they'd hit, they now have to stay and face the consequences. So now we have 1 white and the fort. So we roll, and it is blank and blank. So now the white troop has the option to flee. And I'm going to do that just because I want to illustrate something here. So when a white troop opts to do a strategic withdrawal, they then have the option to remove the fort. So they destroy the fort, they burn it to the ground on their way out. So the fort no longer exists there and will not exist for the rest of the game, because in the full version of the game you have opportunities to build and rebuild forts, but not in this. So this fort is gone, but what this also means is that this territory has now been taken by the French. And there is 1 French regular there still defending the space. And that is it for that turn. So then we go on to the next round, and we get the purple. So now the purple is the French regulars. So they are always getting 2 troops. 1, 2. So the 2 troops now go into any harbor space. So where you see an anchor, so they can go into any harbor space, any friendly harbor space. So maybe they'll come here into Louisbourg. Right? They're coming down there to Louisbourg. And now, like the French Canadiens, they are going to move 2 spaces. So again, they could sail across and attack another harbor. That would be 2. Or they could come up onto land for 1 and then 2. Up to them how they're going to want to do this. But again, we're going to do their 2 movements, do their attacks. Any battles which are fought, we take all the notes to find out who fought, where they fought, and who won, and then on to the next player. When we come to green, When you're putting it down, you're noting the space, the symbol that's there. So with the green cube going here, I am looking for that symbol on the board. And you see the symbol matches here in Delaware. So what that means then is that I'm going to put 2 First Nations troops here in Delaware. Now, because these First Nations troops are unattached to any French or English troops, the first one to come over and join them will take them on as allies. And so that's one way to use them. When we come to the white, so the English colonials, we are going to do as we did with the French, where they're going to get 2 reinforcements. Remember, they have the choice between Philadelphia and Oneida Carry. So maybe we'll go to Oneida Carry because it's up closer to the action up here, reinforce that border. Then they also have 1 troop which had fled, which they can then add as well to that space. So anything that's in the fled area, when it's their turn, comes back into join that grouping. So this is going to continue on when all the cubes have been done. So when so again, they would take their turns, they would do their movements, they would do their attacks, record their battles. Then the red would go do their same thing. Then we go into the next round and the final round. And then in the final round, the movement changes. So this is where I'm saying now, instead of 3 troops moving 2 spaces, only 2 troops are going to move, but they're each going to move 3 spaces. And remember, the spaces being the spots with the lined borders. So that would be the gameplay for 1754. So one thing I forgot to mention is how to win the game. So remember this battle I said here where the French had taken this over. This is important because what this means is you see wherever there's a star space, like this space doesn't have a star, this space doesn't have a star. Stars spaces are the ones that are important enough and valuable enough to be considered worthy for the points. So this one is worth a point to the French. So when they took it away from the English, they get a point for themselves. So at the end of the game, what you're looking at is now, like here, Louisbourg is worth 2, and these spots are 1 each. So wherever you see in the 1 space, those are the ones that you want to be attacking. At the beginning of the game, you're not putting English tokens in here because it's already colored in the English space. However, if the French were to take this space over, then they would put a token down to indicate it is now under French control. So that would then be 2 points for the French. At the end of the game, all you then need to do is look at how many tokens are on the board. Whoever has the most tokens is the winner. Now, one other thing I'd like to point out is what I've done is I have made a giant-sized poster. I took the board and I made it poster-sized here, quite expensive, about $200 to print it and laminate it. And I put here a map of North America just to show the students the area that we are looking at, because they had trouble visualizing it because normally we see it, you know, that way, and it's not, right? We need to tilt our perspective here to understand that, you know, the St. Lawrence thing in Ontario, Quebec, and, you know, America, normally we look at it that way, but this is the East Coast there. Anyway, so this has been very helpful because after playing the game and as we talk about the history lessons, the students, I find them going back and they're looking on the map. Oh, Fort Duquesne is over there and Fort Necessity. And okay, this is now Acadia. I get that. There's the Acadians. They're starting to make those connections. And the more I looked at this map too, the more impressed I was with some of the things that you see, like just look in terms of the mountains here and some of the topography. But then I was noticing like the different styles of housing that you see, longhouses, teepees, there's wigwams somewhere around here. Can't find them now, of course. I'm looking at wigwams over here. So just really interesting to see, and the students were asking questions about, like, is this actually this type, would the First Nations here actually live in longhouses? Well, again, that's an opportunity for inquiry and investigation. And you see here the notes I put on as well, because what I was doing, because it's laminated, I was drawing on a dry erase markers, and showing, as the war progressed and things were happening. So this things are moving here to here, and these are the different big battles that were fought and who won and what was going on. So this was a really helpful tool to also taking that board game experience and making it more of a classroom experience and a classroom learning opportunity to continue furthering that, using the whole board game as that launching point into the history. And I found that they really not only got excited by the history through playing the game, but really started to understand more of it, and it became more tangible to them because they were not just reading about Fort Necessity and imagining where it might be and looking at it on a map, but by actually playing it in this and encountering it in the many attacking Fort Necessity and Fort Duquesne. A lot of those battles did happen there. It really became a whole piece of connection for them to the history, and it was wonderful to see. So that is my take on using the 1754 French and Indian War board game in the classroom. It's my first time doing it, and it's been, in my opinion, highly successful, and so much so that I even talked to the principal about teaching all the grade 7 history classes next year because I've got this, I might as well put it to use. So hope you enjoyed, and if you have any thoughts or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. Remember to hit like and subscribe because it does help the channel. And until next time, I'm your host, Craig Thompson Wood, saying thanks for coming to the classroom.